that's going on. Boys, arm yourselves, life stuff. And we're thinking a lot about cracking lately. From pressure, from sadness, from everything. And I think cracking is the correct word because that's what happened the other day. Right now, I feel like glass that has been shattered but not collapsed yet. As in, there's still a structure, but there's no longer any structural integrity, and everything that structure was designed to keep out is flowing in. And what is or what was that structure, and what is it trying to keep out? Well, I think the structure is designed for power, but considering the assumptions it's built on, it's not for positive power. It's more like mutually assured destruction. Because what is that structure designed to keep out in the first place? Or what is it built in reaction to? Well, it's built in reaction to all the different fears, pains, unknowns, terrors, etc. in reality. And that structure is, I think, not necessarily just our structure, but these sorts of structures in general, a set of capabilities and a doctrine or interpretations guiding them. What you're capable of, what you think, and constant efforts to harmonize the two. That's building the structure. And the purpose of the structure is to deal with how awful reality is. Now, the issue with these structures is they aren't solid, permanent solutions. They can be and are broken. And when that structure breaks, you are confronted with the realities of unfiltered hopelessness and all the fears and pains associated with that hopelessness, that confusion, that unknown. Now, our structure was odd because it proposed to organizing itself and to operating without filtering out that hopelessness. Because if that hopelessness, pain, fear, etc. is reality, then your best option is to deal with it as directly as you can. Not trying to hide from it, because if you try to hide from it or filter it, you're setting yourself up for a big fall when your structure breaks. Now, what we have learned, and maybe we knew this was going to happen, probably we knew this was going to happen on some level, you aren't actually accepting hopelessness when you think you are accepting hopelessness. Your structure can be shattered all the same. And the last 2 days, I have been sitting in this hopelessness. And it's odd because you go into a prey mindset. There's a difference between hurting from something and feeling actually vulnerable to it. For example, no salvation. You won't be saved. That hurts terribly, even if it's true, but it hurts a little bit less when you think there is something you can or should do in spite still of not being saved. It's like you have your hand a little bit close to the fire and it hurts, but you aren't really burning yourself yet because you don't have your hand stuck directly into the fire, and by organizing your thoughts this way, you trick yourself into thinking your hand doesn't need to be in the fire. Even if you're telling yourself that your hand is already in the fire, it's not. Your structure hasn't shattered yet. And I've been here before, but what I'm finding now, returning to this place, this structurelessness, this shattering, is death is so scary. It doesn't matter how bad things are or how much you hurt. Death, when you get closer to it, is still really scary. And again, There is a difference between saying that, seeing that, knowing that, trying to deal with that, and feeling it without any filters. You are going to die. You don't know what happens when you die, and there's nothing you can do about it. And typically, I'll run through scenarios in which one would, because of how bad reality can be, choose death. And working through getting yourself to choose death in those situations, not letting yourself hope because of how bad reality can get. So if you ever find yourself in one of those situations, the ladders are already put up. And those never feel good. And on some level, you might know you aren't going to choose death even if you do find yourself in these situations, even if you know you should, you really should, but even thinking about them without a structure or with a small, unformed, improper structure doesn't feel good. It feels bad, it feels scary. It's something you want to get away from. You're so hurt and afraid from not just getting close in the concentric ring sense, but looking death in the face. You can't even pretend to act rationally. All you can do mentally or physically is run away, even when you know that's not going to get you anywhere. And I think one of the reasons, well, there are a few reasons my structure cracked. One, it believed it could stand even if it claimed it wasn't trying to stand or that nothing can stand. That's human contradiction, cognitive dissonance at its finest. Saying you can or should accept this negativity because it's reality and trying to do that is one thing. But trying to accept you have no control is a method of trying to control things you can't control, even if you're aware of that conundrum. And when the darkness of the world comes knocking in force, your pretend play efforts get shattered like everything else does. Ultimately, your preparations didn't matter. And two, as mentioned, with that outlook, it was based more on offense than it was on defense, right? Because some structures, or I'd say most structures, are based in defense, defending you from all the little ways I'm beginning to think death manifests, all its different little masks. And we didn't, at least consciously, spec into defense, because to me, defense seems like delusion. You are defending yourself from all the little concepts of death by pretending, one, they don't exist, and two, they will be dealt with by someone or something in some way at some point. You aren't going to die. You can do something to fix your situation, and if that doesn't work, it doesn't matter because you're going to be saved. Utter delusion. Now, the irony is, I'm beginning to think those structures are more effective, not in spite of delusion, but because of delusion. If you're going to be shattered all the same, then trying to alleviate the pain of that shattering doesn't matter, because it's annihilation, no matter who you are, no matter what you believe, what you do, when it happens. Ergo, and ironically, by pretending that isn't going to happen, or it will be okay, even though it will, and it won't, your time inside your glass house is going to feel better and be more productive. Now, our strategy differed in that instead of denying these forces' existence or their ultimate power via delusion, we tried not to get in league with those powers because you can't, but instead to steal their fire from them. If what scares you about the forces of death is how utterly helpless you are next to them and how scary they are, instead of picking up a shield of some kind, pick up a sword and try to master their abilities for yourself. Again, like mutually assured destruction. The issue with that is instead of trying to deepen your delusion and your defense and thereby make your time alive less stressful, by arming yourself with nuclear weapons and being aware of other nuclear weapons out there, hyper aware of them, your time is so much worse and you're jumpy. Because by trying to attune yourself with the dark forces of the world, with death and its many masks, you might have been able to develop a dirty bomb, a nuke in a suitcase. But if you use it, if you use the culmination of your own power, you're going to destroy yourself in the process, which is the entire reason you've developed this stuff is so you don't get destroyed, and you are hyper aware of everyone else's nuclear capabilities and how outmatched you are. Which again, the entire reason you've developed the minuscule power you have is because you were afraid of powerlessness, and by developing an ounce of power, all you've done is deepen your understanding of how powerless you are. But that leaves us in a weird situation because I don't know what to do. I think once you've had your glass shattered, your horror hymen broken, there's no going back. That's what modernity, or modernism rather, was all about. The shattering of the glass. You read any of the modernists, they aren't relishing in eroding things that are good and real. They are lamenting and often cowering the involuntary revelations of things that are bad. They aren't laughing, happy, chipping away at mountains of goodness. They are cowering at the feet of mountains of madness. And I really do think too much exposure to this helplessness rots you. Like something in Lovecraft, or we've been on a Disco Elysium kick lately, pale exposure, you're irradiated with nothingness. So you have lost your ability to delude yourself with traditional methods. The Lord's Prayer isn't making that cloud outside go away. You can't deal with these realities by becoming a great mage. You're allowed temporarily to feel the power you're accruing, specifically so you can be shown with greater effect, greater impact, how worthless your power is soon enough. Death is really scary, and having it that close to you, having it touch you, makes everything else scary. It makes everything hurt more than it all did. More intensely than it all did. It's like developing a tolerance for fear of heights. Maybe for your job. Maybe you're a lineman, your skill is lineman, your philosophy is YOLO, that's your structure, and then you realize after you slipped but caught yourself, you're 600 feet in the air. Holy shit, your skills don't matter, your philosophy doesn't matter, you might die. And I don't know what to do about that. And because I don't know, I want to clarify. I don't hate love or hope or comfort or any of these things. I hate them, quotes, because I think they aren't real. The ones we see aren't real. We don't see or deal with actual love or hope or comfort or camaraderie, any of these positive things. The ones we see are corrupted, ensnaring, corroding forms of the real things. The real ones, the real positivities of life, are gone. What we're left with are awful things, if you want to reduce them, more little death masks or death shards wearing the masks of these positive things, not because they're going to help you or help you feel better, but just to get closer to you so they can hurt you worse. I would love to live in that positivity world. I stay instead suspicious of these things because they never do what they're supposed to. If you told me I could live in a matrix of positivity, I wouldn't go in, and I wouldn't go in not because I don't want that positivity illusion reality. I do want that. I want to be happy. I want to feel safe. I want to feel successful. I wouldn't go in solely because I don't trust them, whoever's offering this illusion, to uphold their end of the bargain. If I could be 100% certain that Matrix would be paradise everlasting, I would walk into it. And frankly, because of the way this fear of death works, I would walk in involuntarily past a certain point. Because pain and fear are so overpowering, past a certain point, they will make you do anything to escape your fear of death. That's why we venerate every hero, Anne. Because again, no matter how bad you feel reality is, you cross a threshold, and no matter how bad reality feels, death is horrifying. So anyone who can push through that at that level, for any reason, in any way, is on another level of willpower. And that fear connects to what I'm understanding to be at least my reasoning for doing anything. There is no purpose, ultimately, no matter what I say, what I think, what I put together. There's no ideology, there's no philosophy. Every single thing is fear. Fear is my reason for everything. The only reason I'm alive, the only reason my consciousness is flipped to on, is I am so scared of dying. And I will do or think or say anything to try to deal with that. And the only reason I'm not in a holy facility praying is, unfortunately, I've been overexposed, radiated too much for measures like those to work. I need Herculean, made to measure mental gymnastics even to hope to deal with this. And I am utterly lost. I don't know what to do. And to the last thing, I made a few notes. I should have fit this in earlier, but it'll go here. It's about asking for help, and I'll read it out because I don't have the energy to try to fit this correctly. When you finally break and cry for help, probably nobody will come, and you'll be lucky for that. If somebody does come, then you're in an even worse situation than you were in before, because a human being has found, parenthesis, in you, close parenthesis, another human being they can hurt without punishment, without retaliation. Listen to homeless people's stories. It's difficult when you cry for help, or it's difficult because you cry for help when you're breaking. You're crying for relief because you alone can't make it better. What you'll get when you cry for help, invariably, is a creature intent on making it worse. I don't have friends, I don't date, but I maintain an array of professional acquaintances. That is effective, but it hurts because there's no closeness there. There's no connection. There's no we, there's no us. Now, I could make friends, I could date, but I don't, and I don't because they, to me, have always felt like traps. Generally speaking, in my life, when I've had friends, when I've been in relationships, even if if I'm hurting and someone offers help, I don't take it and things are fine. Invariably, the moment I would ask for help, need help, that's when they decide it's time to be nasty, to do something mean. And people in general are just so mean. That's why I have been trying to harness my mean side. Because if one's only interactions with members of their species are going to be receiving meanness, then, God, all you can do is develop the ability to be mean and kind. And not just shitty, low level badness, which is what you do on the daily, but really mean things. And that whole process is so painful because even though it is totally selfish, part of the reason, or most of, being honest, most of the reasons you have friends and are in relationships is so when you're hurt and you cry out for help, someone can or will come help you. Knowing that isn't an option, at least on the primal level you are feeling it, is mind breaking. Sure, you can set things up so if you cry for help, someone might come help and actually help you, but it won't be from love. It won't be from common human kindness. It will be from payment decisions. Whether you're actually paying them or you've done them X number of favors or gaslighted them in some way to make them feel obligated to help you. And even if you've done all those things, sometimes not even then. You're aching from isolation, and that it all comes down to fear. All of it comes down to fear. Isolation as an acute awareness you're alone. If you slip, nobody's going to catch you. But you can't turn to people to alleviate this lack of people fear because people aren't people and they can't do for you what you're fearing you don't have anyone there to do for you. And God, if there is one, can't or won't do it. Your latent patriotism, your belief in something that may or may not exist, but it relies on you, it's not going to help you. If anything, you're there to help it. So even if there is something, you're still alone. So there really is, on no level, anything you can do about your ultimate fear of death and all the millions of little fears coming off that fear of death like tentacles. So, I have no answers. I don't know what to do. This is an analysis of where I am currently. Desperate for delusion. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.